Alright, today I want to continue talking about Mob Psycho 100. I've been watching through that pretty slowly, but just kind of going through step by step and kind of seeing, really trying to take it episode by episode and moment by moment and see what exactly the story has to offer and what the author is actually doing in each story. So for this one I believe the most recent one I watched was episode 4, or at least that's the one I wanted to go on. And this one, let's see, so he does this really, really nice thing for episodes 4, and we'll continue on with 5 as well, because that was kind of the one where it led into where he does a really good job of not making the main character be the sole focus in the story. So we have the main character here, let's color in his hair here. But basically, it's funny for me to realize how much of the story is actually told from other characters' point of view. And what that does is it kind of gives you an interesting balance in the characters' power dynamics, and also gives you the opportunity to really flesh out these side characters as well. So I think I actually just finished maybe episode 6 or something, where we see kind of some more developments from Mob's brother from there. This will be him. And kind of development here. I'll probably talk more about that later in another episode. Basically, his brother is basically getting primed to become a villain, potentially, which is really nice and really cool to see. Good brother for him. But either way, the main thing for this one is going to be a moment or situation I really wanted to kind of highlight and talk about, because I think it really amplifies, specifically it amplifies fight scenes, which are always really kind of tricky to do in some instance, because fight scene is most of the time, I feel like the bulk of the fight scene is less, well, I guess maybe it's not fair to say less about the fight, it's more about what's at stake for the fight, which maybe that's what the fight is to begin with, but it's less the actual combat aspect of it. It's more kind of the what's at stake for the fight versus who will win. From there, let's see, oops, get my paper up here, for who's actually going to be winning for this one. This is kind of the thing that really sets a fight off from just a alleyway brawl versus any other skirmish or anything like that. It's a single, it kind of just highlights what's at stake for the fight and what's really at play. So the idea, when I first started noticing this, anime does this really good, specifically the ones that kind of do quite well at this. Naruto's a good one. The Naruto fights would be Naruto versus Sasuke, of course, the main one. Naruto versus, I'm trying to think who the other one. I know Pain. Naruto versus Pain, where the whole whatever her face is, the creepy-eyed, not creepy-eyed, but the eyeball lady, Byakugan lady, who he ends up saving. There's her Byakugan eyes, as you can tell. There's some eyebrows. And basically what you have set up there is you have a moment where you're really rooting for Naruto, because you have these different aspects which are at play. And it's not just a fight. I think that's one thing where that really kind of sets Naruto apart from, say, kind of the more Dragon Ball Z elements. Let's see. Because in the beginning, you definitely have this with Dragon Ball with Goku and everything, when he's like definitely young, and the younger stages of everything, and you get this to a degree when you have Goku versus Vegeta and Goku versus Frieza. Well, I suppose Frieza, so I'm going to put that. Frieza and everything, but they kind of, as you get onward, basically from Cell Saga on, essentially what you have is it kind of just becomes about the fights. From there. So it's just about the fights and the actual combat themselves. Even so much, I remember in the Cell fight, I'm pretty sure that they basically go and just fight on an actual, like, official, I don't know what you call this, but Japanese, like, mat, basically, from there. They just have, like, a proper fight. There's no, like, ifs, ands, or buts, or, like, no jumping around. It's just, this is a full-on fight that's going to be happening in the actual fighting rink, you know, with the same one where they have like the tournament arc episodes and everything for it. They just have a complete fight here, and let's see, Goku and Cell. And so what it is it basically, they always, I think he tries to do this, but I don't know, I feel like the emphasis is just more about the fights themselves and the moves. Of course, that's where you get the Kamehameha and all these other special, you know, Spirit Bomb, all these different moves. It's all about the fight and the actual physical aspect of it, the moves, the cool features, moving really fast, teleporting behind each other, fist fight, oh, didn't see that one coming, you know, a secret sneak sucker punch attack. It's kind of focused on the fight, probably born out of, I don't know, this is me kind of armchair speculating about the author, but it kind of gets into some aspect of the 80s, you know, the Kung Fu 80s influence, where it's just, there is a lot, now they still do this in most of those movies, just about everyone tries to emotionally charge a fight. But this one, at least in terms of, I'm just trying to highlight this, it's kind of, it's a lot more about the fight, and you kind of see this as it goes on towards into like the Majin Buu saga, which I usually, anytime I have gone back and re-watched or read Dragon Ball, I kind of just stopped after Cell, because at that point there seemed to be kind of a clear transition from, it was kind of just all about the fights and all about the power, the Super Saiyan, and kind of how do you level up to the next level and everything like that, which, while it is cool, it always felt like it was the main focus rather than the emotional charge that needed to go into the fights. So with Naruto, kind of one of the things that it does really well is you have for this Naruto Sasuke fight, he's basically fighting for the soul of Sasuke. And then he loses the fight basically, and then Sasuke runs away. It's kind of this idea, because he didn't stop him, he ran away. For this one versus Pain, he's fighting to protect the village, and there's kind of general like, oh, we gotta protect the village. And then there's kind of the initial, like, see the first bout in the fight between Naruto versus Pain, and then they have this one, and then you have Hinata, that's what her name is. Hinata shows up and gets beat up by Pain, and then this really kind of activates what you call rage mode, kind of the stereotypical, I'm angry, so now I'm really going to try, but it works. And that's the thing, like, we'll make fun of it, but it works. It works every single time. It works every single time. So you got to activate this, and then it kind of levels up the fight. So what this allows you to do is basically have a reset for the emotional charge. Because essentially, if you want to think of the emotional charge as kind of going like this sometimes, and the fight is going like this. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that this doesn't happen, so that at the end of it, it's not just, cool, he beat him, he's much stronger than him. You want to make sure that both of them are working in tandem, or at least there's some reason for that. Basically the tempo, the momentum, the upswing to both be working in the same direction. So for this Hinata fight, probably what we have is we have the fights drawing out. We can see Naruto starting to lose, and we're kind of reaching a lull point, because we're basically kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, when's it going to turn around, when's he's going to do the next thing. And then basically you have the Hinata moment, it goes up like that, and then the fight kind of follows that in some sequence along the same lines of it. And this metric is basically just, like I said, tempo, momentum. We're just going to put that momentum and everything, so you have this like acceleration towards kind of the heightened aspect of the fight. So keeping in mind this kind of two different styles and two different ways of amplifying fights, kind of want to go back to Mob Psycho. What it does really well is it has this moment that really charges a fight, because there's different ways you can emotionally charge a fight. There's like Naruto does a really good one where it's like, I'm fighting to protect X, and then when you see X, you know, in this case Hinata or the village or someone else getting hurt, then you have this emotional charge where I must beat him to protect them. So it's kind of this idea. What you usually want to do is have a balance. Is you want to have a point you're running away, a point you're running to, make that a skull or something, and a plus, because pluses are good. You're basically running, you're never just running to something, you're actively running away from one point. You're running away from one outcome that is bad, and you're running to an outcome that is good. That's how you always want to have it. So there's this kind of this double dual access, or it's like, okay, we're running, I want this, but not just because I want this, it's because I don't want this. It's kind of like the two aspects that are working in conjunction with each other. So with Mob Psycho, what he does really well is there's another way to emotionally charge fights where it is, and so far the one that he's used is kind of this idea, building off of the last time we were talking about this, it's the idea of the power characters where that mob basically is overpowered. So the symbol I used to represent that was this one. So he's an overpowered character, as in he has all the tools necessary to defeat them. So if mob were put into Harry Potter or into, let's see, Star Wars, or heck, even Naruto basically at this point, if you put into any of these, what would happen is the villain would come up and mob would destroy them. End of story. Basically end of story. Just because he's that powerful. He's already that powerful from the beginning. And so what you can use with this overpowered character, and other animes do this, and I'll probably see, I think Naruto maybe have one, but the one I'm thinking in particular has Bleach, where what you do is you basically throwing a character and a villain, we'll say an antagonist, so we're just going to call it antagonist here, antagonist number 1. That's who he is. Antagonist number 1 is going to be going up against a character, and this character it's going to be fighting against is going to be an overpowered character. So in this case it's going to be Mob, and we'll put him right here. And essentially what we're looking for is we're really wanting to see this outcome, because you see, the more we hate this guy and the more we want him to succeed, the better the fight's going to be. So you can, in Naruto, they'll have like honorable enemies where you're not really thrilled that they're like gonna die, but you know they kind of have to, because of their character, they're never actually going to give up, or they're never going to actually like join the good side. And then sometimes you have like the Vegeta moment where like they're like laughing about murdering people, and then like suddenly they become good and they're just good forever. And it's just like, all right, you know, it's anime, so we'll just accept it and kind of move on at that point. So with this one, what we're doing is we really want to defeat this guy, so we're going to make him insufferable. And this is what he does really well with a lot of the bad guys in some instances are just like over the top, and they're incredibly annoying and arrogant. They're like, haha, I'm going to destroy you, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to destroy your family and all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. And so you want then Mob to basically show them up. So this all kind of goes to the moment I've decided to name it. I don't know if it's already got a name, but I wanted to go ahead and get one out just so I can have a quicker way to refer to it. So the one in particular, what I'm typically calling it right now is going with Kenpachi's Eyepatch, and I'll explain this in a second. But basically, definitionally, it's when a bully or a character the audience would like to see get their just deserves picks a fight with someone stronger, often amplified, at least the fight is often amplified by the bully specifically instigating a fight, because it doesn't look good for the main character or for the person fighting. It doesn't feel as good if he picks out the fight. It's even better if the bully looks through a crowd and then picks someone, but then this person happens to be the one person who you've been waiting and hoping for is going to destroy the bully. And I use bully just because bully's kind of a universally disliked, because we'll have villains and enemies that we kind of respect and kind of like even. This is Vegeta. There's a number of other villains who you kind of have this respect for. Itachi from Naruto, where you do dislike him, but you like him, dislike him, but there's this idea that there still is this respect, and he's not someone you actively really dislike. Someone like maybe Orochimaru, or whatever the glasses guy is called, I can't remember. Orochimaru's assistant, the nerdy glasses guy. Him as well, you just don't really care for him. So the eye patch. So what this actually means, this fight, I remember watching it years ago when I went through Bleach initially. And what it refers to is basically this moment where, let's see if we find some clean paper. So what we have this character named Kenpachi, and he has spiky hair. Basically spiky hair, and he is a side character in Bleach. And Bleach, if you don't know, basically there's a bunch of, they're like reapers, soul reapers, sort of. I don't remember the lore behind Bleach, it's been years for it, but basically people are fighting ghosts and stuff, trying to protect humanity, and there's this whole society, and there's a bunch of captains, and he is a side character. Oops, where's my ink? Side character. And essentially he's this super kind of scary, and you never really know how strong he is. Very scary aura and everything with it, and he loves to fight. He absolutely loves to fight, so it's really fun to watch him in action. But there's this scarcity aspect where he's not the main character, so he doesn't fight that much. So he's not in the story. Let's see, not in the story that much. But then he also has this eye patch, basically, and I think it's like something like that. And basically what you understand when he's fighting Ichigo, the main character, at some point. So it does take a bit of setup for this to work. I think it's something like that. I don't remember what this one goes to, around like that way or something. He's got an eye patch that's covering his eye. It's kind of a weird looking eye patch. And he has that, but then it's revealed in the Ichigo fight that this thing actively weakens him. So it actively weakens him. And he does this because he's so powerful that he just immediately destroys his enemies. And the fight's over and it's boring. So what we have here, if you haven't recognized, then is a overpowered character of sorts, basically. He may not be the strongest in the world in the sense, because he's not able to walk over and kill Aizen at any moment. But either way, he's for this scene and for this arc and everything, he is very, very powerful. And so what happens is they're going off, and all the captains and all the leaders are going off to go fight the Hollows. And he ends up running up against this guy who's basically bullying the other main characters. He's much more powerful than them, and he's toying with them, kind of torturing them to some degree, and like injure them and everything. And so what you have then is you're like, oh please, oh please, oh please. You really want, and this guy, I forgot his name, but he's going to be Noitra. He's got that weird like sickle thing. And his hair is, I'm trying to remember, I think it's just super straight because he's emo. And basically, and there's his head and ears and eyes, or something like that. So he is basically going through bullying the other characters. So you have this. We're setting up the fight, if you want to think of it in like tokens and pieces and moves that you're playing. So we're setting up the fight to where he's bullying people, and so you have this instance where you're like, okay, so we dislike this guy. He's actually trying to hurt and torment our main character. So we're basically priming the fight. We're basically making sure the audience does not like him. So he's like hurting them but toying with them at the same time, and so then makes it even better. So then what happens is then he sees Kenpachi, who is this guy. So he sees him and basically picks a fight with him. And so you're like, okay, great, because you get the idea that he's much stronger than the people he's been fighting so far, so you really want to see them fight, because you also want to see him in action, because once again of this kind of scarcity, he's not in the story a whole lot, so we don't get to see him fight that much. So we don't, also as a side step, we don't really know what his power level, as it were, is. So we want this fight, and so then they start fighting, and it's pretty fun because he is really loving it. And so once again, it's a charged 1 because he is Noitra is a bully, 2 because he initiated the fight. He picked the fight, which makes a difference because you want to have this the morals basically behind it. Which in this case, and it's not the cookie cutter Boy Scout morals. It's more like you don't want to be the guy who starts the fight. You want to be the guy who finishes them where it's left standing at the end of it. That's what you really want for yourself. You don't want to go out and pick fights because that kind of makes you the bad guy in this sense. You the kind of trashy guy. So you don't want to do that. So he picks the fight, and we want to see. Let's see. Oops, where's my ink go? We want to see them. Want to see them fight. That's kind of the other aspect. So if we're priming the fight with this, so we're kind of add all of these emotions into the fight, and this is not even anything related to the action. This is just the emotional side charge, the emotional tempo. So we're hoping to get this kind of built up at this point. Now, with any fight dragging on, there's always going to be a lull the longer on you drag it. So you either have to have the fights kind of quick, or not too long. And basically, I would say Dragon Ball Z was pretty bad at this in one sense, where it would continually have fights that would just drag on and on and on and on for episodes and episodes, and then it would kind of have a lull at some point, where, you know, hey, okay, you know, we're really worried about getting killed by Frieza or Cell or something, but we've been alive for a long time, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. So, all right. But he starts this fight, and then essentially the moment in particular, so already you're like waiting for this guy to get his butt kicked by Kenpachi, and then there's this great moment where they're fighting, and he finally kind of gets the upper hand on Kenpachi, and he does an attack, and he knocks off his eye patch. And what we, the audience, know is that the eye patch actively weakens him. So there's this, oh snap, you done messed up, basically. Because basically the fight was kind of even of sorts, but then Neutra knocks off the eye patch, which we know from a previous fight. And this is knowledge. There's an aspect of a nice inside joke, insider's knowledge aspect, because Ichigo knows this, Kenpachi knows this, the audience knows this. So basically everyone knows this except Neutra, except the bully knows it. And it seems just because he's a bully and nobody really cares what he thinks. So he knocks off the eye patch, and this then basically we can see amplifies the fight, because we know that this means that Kenpachi is going to be even stronger than initially. And so now we have all of this going into the fight, and he's like constantly taunting him. So then, and you want to see Kenpachi get released. So there's this kind of like, you done messed up, AA Ron sort of moment where you've been waiting for the bad guy to kind of walk in and hit this landmine of a character. And this is what it kind of takes to set it up. Basically, you know, you kind of have to have this character. You kind of know that they're really strong. You kind of know that it's not a guaranteed. This is one thing. It's not a guaranteed that they're actually going to help you. Kenpachi's kind of on his own side to some degree. He's obviously on the good guy's side, but he's not exactly a great guy. He doesn't do it because he's trying to be nice to people. He does it because he likes to fight, and that's about it. And so that's what makes it feel all the better when Neutra basically walks into this fight, where he picks the fight, he starts the fight, and we really want it, and then the eye patch gets knocked off. Knocked off, and then we have this extra tempo that goes to the fight where we're like really excited to see where it's going to go from there. And this is kind of the building blocks for which makes this fight good and memorable, because it's like I probably will never, I don't know, maybe at some point I'll go back and rewatch Bleach. It's just at some point I'll probably stop at, I don't know, kind of after the first Aizen arc, maybe, when they initially kind of meet in Soul Society. Ichigo gets his Bankai and all that cool stuff. But I would say anyone who's familiar with Bleach will know exactly why I'm hesitant to really start it again, because the 7th time they defeat Aizen, it got really boring. And what this does is it kind of gives this extra charge to the fight, like I was talking about in kind of the Goku versus Cell fight, where it's just fight moves, and kind of the difference that Naruto does, where you have this extra charge and emotion going into the fight. So the thing with Mob that makes it really good is the episode I watched, I think it was episode 5. Episode 5, he encounters... There's like, the author does it like 3 times. So basically what we have is School 1 Gang. I don't remember what their school is called, but School 1 Gang. And then we have the Fitness Club. And then we have the School 2 Gang. And basically, this gang picks a fight between these 2 guys. And so it's kind of funny because these guys are scum. These guys are bullies. So we're okay with that. These guys are bullies. And so what we have is basically these 2 guys, oops, my camera's off. These 2 guys fight. They go against each other, and basically there's this kind of idea where they kind of go against each other. Oops, let me get my camera back up and going. Yep, there we go. These 2 guys fight, And we really want this to happen and fight because, one, because there's this good bad outcome. Two, because they're just bullies. They're straight up bullies. We want them to get taken out. And the fitness club, it represents kind of this as they are plus characters. They're powerful characters, and you're waiting for them to pick a fight, and they, true to form, they pick a fight. They don't know what they've gotten themselves into. They get their butt handed to them. And then these guys also then are like, wait a minute, and they fight against these guys. And they also get their butt handed to them. So you have this continual amplification where you have this fight between this one and this one and this one. And all of this is acting as a setup, basically, for mob. Because basically there's this idea, so we have school... Run out of space here. School 1 versus the fitness club, FC. And then we have the school 2 versus fitness club. Basically these two, I think it's actually switched, but either way you get the idea. School 2, fitness club. And then we have the other Esper, so we'll put him as E, the other psychic, versus the fitness club. And the outcomes to these fights basically are kind of building up this tempo where the fight, so it's like you have a strong person who then defeats them, and then another stronger person is continual ramp up from here. And then basically we have a fight between, we have the other Esper and Mob. And it's this continual build up, because basically we can already know that Mob, what it does in this scene is Mob is obviously stronger than every one of these characters, because basically we have this idea that, okay, they defeated him, they defeated them, and then he defeated them, and then he defeats him. So it's at the end of the day we kind of know who's top dog from here, and it kind of basically adds this emotional charge to amplify each fight, because we want them to get beat because they're bullies, we want them to get beat because they're bullies, we want him to get beat because he's kind of just an ass. And then we really want to see Mob go up against him. So this is continual amplification of the fights. And all of this happens in just one episode, which is really kind of just one of the things that really does make Mob Psycho really well, is that he does not drag it out. He does not delay in time. He doesn't delay or anything like that. That's kind of one of the biggest things that I think Naruto, maybe not Naruto is the worst example, but it's one of them, or not one of the worst. It's just, it's an example of where there's a lot of nothing that happens, which to some extent, that kind of adds a different level, it adds a different aspect of comfort and peace for it, that maybe that's what you're going for. But in terms of Mob Psycho, there's this continual, it's very efficient with space. He does not waste time. So it's kind of one to the next thing. So what we have is this whole fight between these three guys, and we have one with Mob. And we're kind of, it's this idea of the Kenpachi's Eyepatch almost each time, not fully, but one of those moments. But it's this idea that, okay, these guys are just looking for some sucker to fight, and they happen to find the fitness club, and they're like, okay, we're going to go beat these guys up. They get their absolute butts handed to them. And then the second gang is like, okay, well, we beat these guys up, so we're stronger than them, so now we're going to beat you up. And then they defeat them single-handedly. So it's this continual, amping up of the emotion charge within a fight. And that's what I think really does a good job of taking a fight from just a who's better to actually adding some really, really making you root for the character. That's why, when a character is about to die, that comes into play. When you actually think a character is in danger, this kind of gets tricky, and this is the reason why, or it gets tricky because if it's the MC, then it kind of defeats the purpose it kind of deflates it a little bit, which is the reason why they will often use other things like Hinata or something like that in this examples. And Hinata Pinata, basically from here, because this character can die. Naruto cannot, because the show is called Naruto. He can't die. So what you do then is you then have a character that, like Hinata, that gets put in danger, and essentially she could die and the story goes on. So that actually adds this extra emphasis of terror and being scared. So you want a side character. We're going to make this side character. A side character that can get killed. And this happens from time to time, but it gives this idea that there's actually real stakes in the matter. So there's just different aspects, different avenues which you could play off of a fight. This one is using the See, I'll call it KE, Kenpachi's Eyepatch. And like I said, this does not have to be named after him. Probably there's a much better, earlier on, better deserving name for this. The reason why I simply do it is just because it's one of those where it just, it stuck with me. I was pretty, into anime at the time, still am to some degree, but it really, the emotional charge, and I was going for it, and I was really hoping Kenpachi would absolutely lay down the pain, and he did, and so it was this moment where it was just, it's a fight that still sticks with me, despite all the fights in Bleach, which there's just a never-ending sequence of them, and it kind of helps and adds to this aspect of what makes the fight good, what makes it special, and why does it matter. There's two characters fighting. This is the reason why the emotional fights are always the best ones. So like in One Piece, the fights before, let's see, in One Piece, the fights for, let's say, helping Ace. We'll call it that. Helping Ace. These fights are really, really, really supercharged. Just because we really like Ace. Ace is such a great guy. And we really want to help him out. So it's all the fights that are going around here. This is the reason why, and a lot of this happens naturally, and we know what it is, but I just want to help point out and see this is what they're doing. They're priming the fight and basically trying to give you an idea for why you should care about it, what's at stake, and really working on getting the audience involved in the fight and wanting to see who will win.